Welcome back, my friends, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Whatever you're doing, if you're coming from work or going to work, so much happened in Ukraine in the past 24 hours that I have to bring in Ivan to tell you all of the story. Okay, Ivan, give me a report of past 24 hours of Russian armed forces. Так точно, командир. First of all, our biggest military factory in all of Russia, in Smolensk, exploded. Okay, we can absorb these losses. If that is all... Commander, that is not it. In Donetsk, our entire fuel train was exploded. Okay, we must absorb these losses. If that is all... Commander, that is not all. The military convoy of the 1251st Regiment was exploded. Ivan Kazёl, that must be it. We cannot absorb these losses. Commander, that is not it. Crimean bridge is now closed and smoke screen is deployed. Ivan, I send you to be part of meat assault. Пошел нахуй, go now. Where to begin, my friends? There is so much to report, and I will begin in Donetsk because it is closest to Avdiivka and it directly influences Russian offensive capabilities in Avdiivka. Donetsk city, where most of the supply and logistics networks goes through before it arrives on the front in Avdiivka and in the surrounding areas. Well, in this city, Ukrainians struck a Russian fuel train, entire fuel train, with HIMARS. And as we know, HIMARS doesn't really miss, and it didn't. Let's look at the photos, and they're marvelous. Photo taken from Donetsk city, something going on in the distance. Let's go a bit closer. We are closer. It seems pretty big. Something big is burning. Oh, and now we're here and look at this. This is like straight out of a Hollywood movie. An entire fuel train. This fuel is vital for the Russian war effort because everything, the Russians love these armored convoys. Without it, it's just the meat assaults which don't achieve anything. Well, armored convoys take a lot of fuel, so much fuel. Russian T-72 is known to take about 80 to 90 liters per 100 kilometers. 1 liter per 1 kilometer, that is so much fuel. You need all of this fuel in these trains, but it's burning. What are you gonna do? Damn, look at that carnage. And of course, here's another photo. Now, as we can see, there are living houses, living quarters right next to it, and it's winter, so these guys don't really have to heat their homes because the heat coming from this carnage, I think it will be enough for them to enjoy warm weather around the fire. What does this really mean for the Russian war effort? Well, as you can see, Avdiivka is right to the north of Donetsk. All of the fuel going to these convoys of the most active front is right now burning. So for the next week, Russians cannot really use armor that much. They have to use more meat assaults, which directly translates into more Russian KIAs, more troops knocked out cold. Pushing up daisies, taking a dirt nap, as you guys say in my comments. But it's not only Avdiivka. Donetsk supplies also Marinka, this city right here, which has been a center of battles for the last 10 years, yes, from 2014. And all other fronts in the vicinity of 100 kilometers, everything moves through Donetsk. For any kind of offense in any kind of modern war, fuel is number one. No fuel, no offense. And right now, fuel is burning. Now, my friends, you might ask, why do I have this random Russian Chuvashia Republic on the Google Maps? Well, it is very important. An entire Russian battalion was formed out of people from this republic, 1251st Regiment of the Chuvashia Republic. They were sent to the special military operation in Ukraine in last winter, 2022. And this is how they arrived. I'm not kidding you. Since they have their own culture and their own customs, they were doing this dance when they arrived. We're going to beat the Ukrainians, woo, hooray! This is what they were doing. Dancing on Ukrainian soil, celebrating victory too early. What happened to them yesterday? Well, they were visited by HIMARS, who sent some presents, and this is what is left. You can see it in this video. Everything destroyed. This is a carnage. Everything. Local Russian sources and the Chuvashian Republic Telegram actually report, so these are Russian information, not the Ukrainian claims, that there are 120 soldiers knocked out cold, sent to push up daisies or sent to take a dirt nap. Also 10 plus vehicles, most of them logistic vehicles and regular cars. But still, this is an entire convoy and almost an entire battalion knocked out cold, because 120 Kia and some more additional wounded. This battalion cannot go into battle. They're not battle effective anymore. This one attack took an entire battalion formed out of one entire Russian Republic out of existence. Last winter 2022, they were making a celebratory victory dance on Ukrainian soil, celebrating Russian victory. Now, in October 2023, they met their end. They were knocked out cold. Well, as any Russian higher-up would say, we can absorb these losses. I don't think in the long run that they can. My friends, and this next news really angers Putin, because it's his pride and jewel, the Crimean Bridge. It's one of the things that Putin is most proud in his life, and I know this. His occupation of Crimea and connecting Crimea to mainland Russia with the Kerch Bridge. Well, the whole of Crimea got a missile alert. The Crimean Bridge now is closed, and it had to deploy smokescreen yesterday, because there was a threat of it being attacked. Ukraine doesn't, of course, claim anything, but we can see from the Russian responses that they are jumpy. They're ready to push the button any moment. Deploy the smoke screen, Ivan. We don't know when the missiles are coming, and Ukrainians are like, hey, we didn't even send anything yet. This means the Russians are reacting and the Ukrainians have the initiative. And that's number one in any kind of battle. The reactive side usually loses. My friends, I've gotten some comments that I play around with the map too much and it makes your head dizzy. I'm sorry, my friends, I have ADHD. In my head, it's like three monkeys banging plates together all the time. For me, this is what is happening all the time in my head. I'll try to go slower. Now I'll zoom into Taganrog, which is in Russia, physically on Russian territory, a Russian city. And it is important because there is an airfield here, this one, Taganrog Airbase. And you remember the attack on Berdiansk, which is a Russian-occupied Ukrainian coastal city, where Ukraine destroyed 9 Russian choppers in one fatal blow. The first strike with long-range ATACMS destroyed 9 choppers. Well, after that, Russians had to push all of their aviation assets 150 kilometers away from the front. And where did they push them? Well, to this Taganrog Airbase, on Russian soil about 50 kilometers from Ukrainian border, Russian-occupied Ukrainian border. Brady Afrik gives us a great thread on Russian assets in this airbase after the devastating attack against Berdiansk. 21 Russian helicopters were at Taganrog Airbase when this latest satellite image was captured, and as we can see, these choppers are clearly visible on the satellite imagery. Now the issue with this is, and Russians know this very well, that the United States does not allow Ukraine to use ATACMS on Russian soil, which doesn't include Crimea, but includes Russia and Taganrog. So unfortunately, Ukraine cannot use ATACMS here like they did in Berdiansk, because this would be a juicy target. Look at these assets. Kaboom, kaboom, I would love to see it. We also see transportation aircraft, which, I mean, if we're talking about any kind of air assets in the Russian aviation, they are expensive, whatever you mention. They are expensive and you cannot replace them. Choppers, transport planes. Here is another photo which summarizes perfectly how many of these choppers and planes are bunched together in this Taganrog airbase. We see close to 30 aircraft, out of which 6 have been identified and 24 are unknown. Close to 30 in one place. I mean, unfortunately, Storm Shadow can also not be used on this airbase because the French and the British have also said a big no-no for attacking Russian soil. This only leaves Ukrainian-owned homemade drone production. Now, my friends, I'll zoom into Avdiivka once again because we have another report. Like in every video, I give you these truthful reports right from Avdiivka front, from the Russian side and from the Ukrainian side, both sides, so we have a balanced image. Yesterday we had a Russian report, today we're going to have a Ukrainian report. I'll read it to you. What will I say about Avdiivka? To say that something could have been done better to repel the Russians is wrong, because no one has ever done it better than those who are standing there now. I often hear people say that Avdos or Avdiivka cannot be taken because of 8-year fortifications. I have also said it in my channel. I always claim that, 8 years they've built up these fortifications, and I do believe it. But this report says that all of that is nonsense. Ask the soldiers where they hold the defense. Yes, I have to admit, a lot of the Ukrainian defensive positions are in front of the old positions that were built 10 years ago, so we cannot claim that the effectiveness of the defense is because of these 10-year fortifications, because Ukrainians are defending ahead of these positions, on new defensive positions. Now the titanic work of the unit stationed there continues. I am personally proud of these fighters, but numbers are numbers, and even if 20 of the 100 reach the trenches, our soldiers can hardly give them an equal fight, because they simply got tired destroying those 80. And this is a paragraph that gives us an entire summary of how Russians have success with these pointless meat assaults. They send 1,000 soldiers. Ukrainians incredibly effectively are able to eliminate 800 of them. And then Ukrainians are very tired and have exhausted their ammunition. And then those 200 that were left alive of the Russian soldiers jump into the trenches, and it's not an equal fight, because Ukrainians are low on ammunition, low on energy and strength. They haven't slept for a long time, possibly. Ukrainian artillery crews have perhaps exhausted their ammunition, and they cannot shoot into Ukrainian trenches. So it's an unfair fight, even if any Russian soldiers jump into the trenches. So the whole goal, which Ukrainians are doing quite good, is to stop them at no man's land. Artillery missions, mortar crews, kamikaze drones, grenades, small arms fire, but to do everything that they wouldn't reach physically the trench line. Much like World War I, actually. Russians sent 2 more new brigades in this direction. Unfortunately, their strategic offensive potential is limitless. Again, a very good paragraph here. 2 more brigades, additional reserves. Compared to Ukrainian manpower, yes, Russian reserves are limitless. Of course, in reality, they are not, but compared to Ukrainians, they are. They don't even compare. Only the professional work of artillery and heavy equipment units helps to effectively reduce it. But it's worth remembering, the infantry always has the last word. Yes, they do, because even artillery, if they are incredibly effective, which they are, and precise, and they knock 80% of Russian offensive capabilities out cold, these 20%, 2 tanks and 10 men who reach the trench line, they will have to deal with Ukrainian infantry, which means the infantry has the last word. My friends, now I'll zoom in from this city, Solikamsk, Russia. I'll zoom out slowly so you don't get dizzy, and you can see how far it is from Ukraine. Incredibly far, to be precise, 1,500 kilometers from the nearest point of physical Ukraine. Why is this important? Well, because in this city, one of the biggest Russian military factories is stated. It is one of the factories that Stalin actually moved eastwards after the Nazis occupied everything up to Moscow. We all know that the Soviets were able to survive because Stalin mobilized the entire population and physically relocated the factories to the eastern side of the Ural Mountains. Well, this is actually a little bit to the western side, but it's close to it. The point is the same. This is a relocated factory. So far away that Germans couldn't reach it. But the Ukrainians can, and they did, because kaboom! This happened yesterday. This factory is producing explosives for the Russian army. We're talking all kinds of explosives, for mines, for artillery shells. Yes, they're a factory that produces artillery shells, the most necessary commodity in this war on both sides. And Ukrainians sent some presents into the factory because boom, 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 smoke is coming from it. 1,500 kilometers away. 2 versions. Either Ukrainians sent a drone from their land, 1,500 kilometers. They have the capability, but it's very unlikely. The more likely reason is that Ukrainian SBU has contacts and guerrilla fighters in Russia who sent drones closer to this Solikamsk city. And this is even worse for Russia, because the Russians cannot control such a vast area and eliminate all the guerrilla fighters. If Ukraine has these contacts in Russia, they can strike anywhere, anytime. Well, it doesn't really matter which version is true. What matters is that Russian factories are not safe on the eastern side of the Ural Mountains like Stalin thought. Ukrainians have the better capabilities than the Nazis did. And now, my friends, as I promised, most of the comments said yesterday that I should keep reporting very shortly at the end of the video about Israel conflict. Now, I try to do my best to not choose any side and give you the information as neutrally as possible. And I'll try to do that. Who the rebels shot more missiles into Israel, who the rebels are of course funded by Iran. Iranian media is right now trying to make it look like Israel is being attacked on all sides. Israeli media reported that these missiles were shot down with an air defense system Israel has never deployed before. Arrow 3, first time deployment, and if we take into account that these missiles were shot down, it's very effective. According to Israeli sources, yesterday in the G sector, where Israelis have really increased their airstrikes, they eliminated the H group commander who was in charge of the October 7th incursion into Israeli territory. As you know, most of the H group gets their weaponry and ammunition through tunnels from Egypt via weapons smuggling, which is mostly funded by Iran. Those weapons are directly sent by Iran. These tunnels are a huge issue for Israel because most of them are undetected. Israel has been developing actually bombs for aircraft. Some of them are like foam bombs or bombs that can penetrate deep underground to collapse these tunnels. Israelis are now reporting that they have started bombarding ground where they have intelligence that tunnels could be underground. The goal of the bombarding is to collapse these tunnels, therefore cutting the logistical supply of the H group. See, even this war in Israel is a war of logistics. Right about today and yesterday, Israeli ground forces are entering insanely densely populated areas in the G sector, and battles have intensified in between Israeli ground forces and the H fighters. The first Israeli ground forces have already reached the H fortifications. Yesterday, Israeli sources reported that 317 soldiers of the IDF are casualties, are KIAs in this conflict, which is a large number already. And Egyptian sources yesterday reported that they are now fortifying the border with the G sector because they're expecting a mass exodus of Palestinian refugees from the G sector, and the potential of it is huge. It could trigger an emergency catastrophe on Egyptian border, so the Egyptians are preparing for it. These are all the news from the Middle East, and I'll keep them coming if you want me to. Let me know in the comments. Now, my friends, I'll thank the Patreons, my favorite part of the video. And remember, if you become tier 10 and above, and I'll be reading your name also in the end of every video. Artur, Rotch, Gabi Mimovic, Sko Andersen, Natte Kurrei, Trevor Vorley. Thank you to these 5 people for supporting the channel. Also, my friends, I guide you to my Instagram account. Link is in the description below, because there I can post stuff which I cannot post on YouTube. I'll see you there. And until my next video, which will be tomorrow, Slava Ukraini, and bye bye.